With me is Robert Temple, the researcher and author of The Sirius Mystery, which is a substantial volume investigating and hypothesizing on the astronomical knowledge of an isolated tribe living on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert. Now, Robert, this Dogon tribe seem to belie their appearance as primitives.
Yes, the Dogon tribe are primitive in the sense that they have no modern technology, although I would say that their culture is anything but primitive. What mystifies me is that they have their culture based upon advanced information which could only have come from a technological society, which they are not. The knowledge of the existence of a star which cannot be seen by the naked eye, can only be seen by a 15-inch telescope, which is a little star going around the star Sirius. This star has a little companion called Sirius B by the astronomers. You can't see it, and nor can you know anything about it unless you have a technological society. However, this tribe, supposedly primitive, know about its existence, they know the period of its orbit, they know what it is made of, and other facts which are also impossible for them to have known.
This would be much easier to believe if this tribe were English speaking and you'd been there yourself and had it explained to you. But being as they do speak another language, is it not possible that the people that originally interviewed them and translated what they were saying injected some modern scientific thinking onto the story?
No, because the French anthropologists who have reported all this studied the tribe for 45 years and are among the most distinguished anthropologists in France. One of them is now Secretary General of the Société des Africanistes at the Musée de l'Homme in Paris, for instance. And there seems no question but that the information is authentic.
Presumably they weren't calling the star Sirius.
Well, they were calling it something in their own language, Siki Tolo, Tolo being their word for star. The identification is quite precise. There's no question about any of that, and that's all been gone into by astronomers. It's their most precious knowledge. It's the esoteric basis of their entire life, and their most secret tradition, which was only revealed to the anthropologists after they had spent a kind of apprentice 15 years living with the tribe. Then the priests got together and had a powwow in which they decided, they took some sort of vote apparently, and decided they would reveal this information to the anthropologists, who then wrote it up and published it in an obscure anthropological journal, making no fuss about it because the anthropologists themselves didn't seem to appreciate the astronomical importance of this, since they weren't astronomers. They also know about the four main moons of Jupiter, which are also invisible to the naked eye. They know about the ring around Saturn, which is invisible to the naked eye. And they know that the Earth goes around the Sun, as indeed all the planets do. They have, in fact, a clear conception of the solar system as such, and they also believe that there is an equivalent type of solar system, quite separate, based around the star Sirius, which they believe has three stars, not just two, and I must say a third star has been reported occasionally by modern astronomers, but not ultimately confirmed. It may exist. And they believe that this third star, Sirius C, if it exists in reality, has a planet going around it. They know the difference between a planet and a star. They also know that orbits of planets are elliptical and not circular, which of course is another advanced bit of information. It just goes on and on. They know about the circulation of the blood. They even seem to have a kind of theory of genetics.
Could this knowledge not have come from the university that was at Timbuktu, which is quite close to this tribe's present location? I believe it was operating in the 16th century and was quite sophisticated.
Yes, that's been suggested, but one which I think we must dismiss, because the ceremonies connected with the Sirius information amongst the Dogon can be traced back through physical artifacts to about 1200 AD, before this university apparently was flourishing. And prior to that time, the Dogon tribe were a migratory tribe whose origins I believe I have successfully traced back to Libya, and they seem to have preserved information which I believe I have now established was definitely brought with them in their travels and originated from ancient Egypt as the basis of the ancient religion of Isis and Osiris, the goddess Isis being identified by the Egyptians with the star Sirius.
Where did the knowledge come from in those times? You can't see the dwarf star going around Sirius with a naked eye or even a small telescope.
No, absolutely not. They say that the information was brought to Earth by visiting extraterrestrials who had intelligence, and who precipitated the formation of civilization on our planet. That is, we had lots of people running around, and many of them, I'm sure, were quite nice, but they didn't have much in way of a civilization going, and they claimed that this information came from that source. In fact, the tribe described the landing of these ships and the creatures who came out of them, who live on this planet, which they insist goes around Sirius C, which may or may not exist. And the Babylonian description of the founding of their civilization tallies very well with the Dogon account. And the Egyptians, in their own way, from the fragments that we have of their tradition, are even more precise. They describe Sirius as being the home not just civilization but of souls. They claim that the Sirius system, which has a watery paradise in it, they claim, which is presumably a watery planet, that is, if one extrapolates, is the place where you go when you die.
Could it not also be these myths are just myths?
What we're faced with is hardcore, specific, concrete information. Now, you can't invent information of this precision. It's just impossible. There aren't even odds to express the coincidence that would be necessary, the trillions and trillions and trillions to one odds of being able to invent precise numerical information of this kind, all of which tallies, you see. There is no possibility of coincidence. These particular myths are merely the means of preservation to this day of very specific information.
Well, what would you say is the next step?
I am definitely in favor of, and I'm trying to encourage, the listening for messages from Sirius with a radio telescope, because if there are signals coming from there, if there is a civilization there, and I think this is a possibility we must consider, then for goodness sake, let's get busy listening. That's one way to check it out. It wouldn't disprove it if we found nothing, but if we found signals, that would be the clear answer, wouldn't it?